there is a practice of innovation and there is a science of innovation. And what's very obvious in the analyzing of innovation, it's a long journey that is dramatically hampering development of hard tech technologies. And that is manifested by simply looking at the venture capital investment into hard tech ideas like the ones I've just shown you. Less than 1% of the VC money, as PCAST report tells us, is invested into hard tech ideas. And annually, about $160 billion is invested in startups by the venture capital community. Gosh, wouldn't it be nice if we could double this number? We would have twice as many technologies. And we really wouldn't take money from others, given the fact that most of it is already invested elsewhere. We might have an idea on how to do that, and that's what we are trying at MIT Nano. The goal is to make a journey, to make a hard tech startup into a VC investable investment. We need to shrink the amount of time it takes to scale the idea from over 10 years to maybe 5 years. I told you historically we have never done it in less than 10 years. I just need to make it appear to the VC that it's only 5 years away. Not bluff them, but actually make it so that truly in 5 years they can do it. Which means the first 5 years of the development need to happen without VC funding. Well, that's very expensive. If I need to build a facility, get my microscopes, install my tools, hire a chemical safety officer, ensure that my quantum dots are proper. These are really hard things to do. But it turns out someone has already done it for you. And that is what MIT Nano can be as another element of how to launch the next set of innovation journeys, which is, people often speak about, a valley of death. And working with one of my students, Rich Swartworth, he says, well, there are really 3 valleys of death. And I started recognizing really there are 3 valleys of death. The first valley of death is valley of death of an idea. You have a fantastic idea and you need someone to just give you a little bit of money to get going. Then there's a valley of the prototype. Once you have the idea, can I make it into something I can show to the possible investors? And then finally, it's looking all good. Prototype is working. I have the way to scale it, except I need the last 85 million to actually build a factory. The first 2 valleys are only 15 million. I say only because that's relatively small on a $100 million scale. And this last one is the hefty one. Let me ask the VCs for the last one. Because this first 2, that's my first 5 years. This last one, that's the next 5 years. So I need to present your idea right there at the end to the venture capitalists. And it turns out, right now, in today's model, looking around at different statistics, I'm going to wave my hand and say about 10% of our good ideas get funded to become, towards becoming a prototype. Of those, maybe a quarter actually get funded to think about making a prototype into something that looks like a process. And then of those, maybe a third are actually funded to become real products. So multiply those numbers, that comes out to less than 1% of really good ideas ever get to the stage of being scaled. My goal, though, would be to figure out a way to make those first 2 valleys of that little bit shallower. And access to existing shared academic facilities actually is the key to that. If I can make it so you don't have to build your facility, you can use the existing tools. You still need money. You need to pay me a little bit to maintain my tools, but you can use a $7 million microscope for $100 an hour. If you need a $7 million microscope results to make your discovery, I'm fairly cheap from perspective of doing it yourself, right? You can dramatically reduce the cost. And maybe I can shrink the first 15 million into maybe 3 or 5. That becomes an angel investment. So that you have a cousin or who happens to have made some money, and the rich uncle, or one of the angel investors that says, hey, I'll give you, I'll support you, I'll think you're real. And then you can take that next step of standing in front of a VC, showing them something that works, or failing, but failing on a cheap. The goal overall is give me more chances, bring more of the startups to that last valley of death, so that, yes, only 33% of them will get funded, but the 33% of a larger number of opportune startups will get funded. And maybe we can move that VC investment from 1% to 2%, maybe even 5%, and bring 5 times more technologies to the world.